Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Women Who AI Summit. We are having a jam-packed day two, talking with all of these amazing female pioneers in AI innovation. And in this session, I'm here with the amazing Lori Keefer. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. And for any of you who've been able to be a part of all three sessions, Lori is not a newbie when it comes to being a part of the Women Who AI Summit, nor is she new when it comes to the world of AI. Lori, I know you have a lot of background when it comes to technology and things like that. But first and foremost, you're an online marketing strategist, right? That specializes in
Yes.
helping introverted women, entrepreneurs build thriving businesses on part-time hours, which I love. The part-time hour thing, working less is definitely and has always been a theme, I think, of using AI when it comes to the Women Who AI Summit. I know you're best known for your innovative use of storytelling and email marketing, and you really like to empower your clients to cultivate deeply engaged audience and turn part-time work into substantial online success. And with that, right, so much of your background with marketing, I know you talk about that storytelling piece and really engaging your audiences. So I'm excited to really see how you're being innovative in that arena, right, when it comes to
Right.
using AI. So I'm excited for you to be here. And I'd love for you to just start by sharing. I know you've got that diverse background and you like, technology and things like that. So what has been your journey with using AI?
My journey, if I go way back, high school was when I took my first programming class. And back then, I'll date myself, I'll age myself. I learned to program with the punch cards. So, so yeah, I go way back with computers. Into college, I studied systems analysis and design and computer science. So I love to figure out how systems work and to plan them out and design them out to get them to do what you want them to do. The first one I did for a college course was a whole computer system for a dental office, a fictitious dental office. But that's kind of what my brain likes to do is look at an organization or a business or even a solopreneur, and this is what you want to accomplish. Now let's figure out an efficient way to get it done. So that's my background. I also grew up, my dad was in the Air Force and he worked with AI back in the 80s. So I've been exposed to AI before most people even knew it existed. I was exposed to some of it. Some of it was classified, so he couldn't share all. But I've been around computers and AI and stuff for a while. Fast forwarding to recent years, I've always been a computer geeky person, trying to figure out ways to do things. And then when AI kind of exploded in open to the general public a couple of years ago, I was intrigued, I was interested, I was excited. I started playing around with it, and my background in programming, I think, really lended itself for being able to create better prompts because it's like programming. What you put in is going to determine the quality of what you get out. So that's really where I excel. And I immediately saw the need and the how it would benefit entrepreneurs with their content and with their marketing stuff because so many people struggle and get overwhelmed with figuring out all of the things for marketing. And AI can just, once you learn how to use it, it can really knock it out in a fraction of the time. So you can really have that part-time business for the full-time life. It's kind of like my little thing I say.
I love that you bring that point up because, again, right, today's all about innovation. So the fact that you have that deeper understanding on the programming side, I would imagine, and I'm guessing because I do not have, expertise on that back end side, but how has your knowledge with programming, right? I'm assuming it gives you a deeper understanding about machine learning, about how artificial intelligence actually works. Do you think it's given you an advantage in terms of, I know you mentioned better prompts, but do you think just having
Right.
that deeper understanding, do you think that gives you an advantage when it comes to really leaning in with AI and being able to be innovative with what you know it can do?
I think it does give me an advantage. In the beginning, when I started playing, when ChatGPT first came open to the public for free, I didn't think about it that way. But the more I worked with it and the more I taught it to my clients, I hear a lot. How do you figure out what to say to get this out? Because I'll type in something and not get the right stuff. And I think that background, and I guess just the way my brain works, is really advantageous.
I can definitely see that. And I think one of the things that has come out with all of these Women Who AI summits and these different interviews is just this overall idea that females tend to approach how they use AI and how they might are trying to be innovative with AI in a different way than we typically might see across the board. There's, been a lot of conversation around like a holistic approach, having it not be completely focused on how can it grow my business to, lots of the CEOs yesterday shared about how their solutions were really just because they had a problem and they had an idea,
Right,
right? And even though they didn't know how it was going to work, they believed in their idea enough to seek that out and seek some
right.
support. What are some ways you've seen or, what are some differences you think women bring to the table when it comes to AI innovation?
I think just our way of thinking. I don't know. It might sound a little sexist, but women think differently than men. That's a fact. And I think that's part of part of what we bring to the table is our way of thinking and our way of, I don't know if you'd say thinking outside the box, but thinking differently. We're all, we're thinking of business and home and dinner and meals and house cleaning and I don't know. It's just, we think differently to put it simple. I think it's what helps.
I think you're right. I think that there's something to be said around maybe the number of plates that females spin, right? And recognizing that I think from the very beginning, and to your point, this is like a total tangent, but I also teach college. And one of the college classes that I used to teach was human sexuality. And one of the components of that was gender differences, like the physiological differences between, males and females. And I used to show my college students a video that would show like some of the differences between males and females. And there was one component of that video where they would give males like 10 things to do. They'd put them in like a fake kitchen and they'd give them 10 things to do, right? And then females had the same list. And it would show how, if the pot of water is boiling, but the phone rings and the oven goes off, that they can answer the phone, deal with the pot, and turn off the oven.
Oh, yeah.
A male will sit on the phone while the pot is bubbling over and the oven is going off, right? Because they really just can do one thing at a time. And I think what you're speaking to, right, is also recognizing that we're constantly not just looking for a solution, but we're looking for like many solutions and like
Right.
they all integrate together, right? It's not just like, how can this help me do the one thing? I think very often we're like, how can this one thing help me do many?
Agreed. Absolutely. And I also think women, like if I take my husband and I, for example, he can look at the next thing, but I'm looking 5 and 6 and 7 steps down.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of women are that way because we're able to look 5 or 10 steps into the future. It allows us to take something like AI and just run with it.
Mhm. Mhm. So, with that point, right, I would love to hear a little bit about how you've been able to integrate AI in an innovative way within your marketing business, within the storytelling and the email marketing that you help your clients do.
Me personally, with our businesses, I use it to help create my content. And I've been able to, my daughter told me, she's like, it's almost like you're talking to a real person because she'll stand here and watch as I'm typing. She's like, you even say please and thank you. But I've kind of built a rapport with my AI, and I've also taken that rapport and I've been working on a custom GPT that I'm letting my clients have access to right now. Eventually, once I get the tweaks all worked out, I will have that available for other people to use. But it's a GPT that takes my beliefs in marketing and my beliefs in the power of storytelling to help create your content. So it's learning. I'm kind of putting in frameworks and templates of how to take a little story and turn it into a piece of marketing content. So I'm excited about that.
That sounds nothing less than amazing. And I love that you talked and spoke to that custom GPT piece, right? Because I think that having that feature in Chat GPT has really given people an added opportunity to be innovative in what they can create, right? And I think when
Right.
you were on our first summit as a speaker, and if you remember, I think a big part of that conversation a little over a year ago was it was all about prompts, right? It was all about
Right.
crafting the prompt. It was all about having the prompt that can get close to mimicking your voice and things like that. And now, just a year later, we're in this world of custom GPTs
Yep.
and things like that. And I love that not only have you created one, but I just love that it has brought up this opportunity for just AI users in general to really be innovative and ask themselves, what could I create? Right.
Yes. It's really
Um,
cool.
so what have you noticed in terms of, that whole voice reflection? You mentioned that, it sometimes sounds like you're talking to a real person but in the whole world of storytelling, what have you been able to do to really get ChatGPT to identify the distinct way that you actually as a person might tell a story? I still see people creating content with as much as AI has evolved, really just feeling like that is still that missing piece. I work with people and I have clients all the time that are like, this is 97% right. And it's missing a little something of what I know I would add if I was the voice behind it. So, have you been able to uncover what that secret is? And maybe you don't want to share the entire secret right with us today, but I'm sure that again, with your knowledge, you've had some innovation in terms of how do I actually bring that human storytelling component that in your business is so important.
Right. Well, one of the ways I have several different things that I use and I show like my clients when I'm working with them, especially on my VIP days, how to do it. But one of the ways that I would love to share is I send out a daily email to my list. And I will start with I have a Pages document. I'm a Mac user, so it's Pages, not Word. And I'll type just a draft of my email. All of my emails are story based. So it's a story and a marketing lesson. And then I'll copy that into ChatGPT. And I'm like, okay, here's my draft. And I've already preloaded this chat with my framework for my daily email. It's got a specific framework that I want to use. I'm like, okay, here's my story. I want it to be related to something about marketing strategy. Help me fix it into my framework. And it'll do that. And because I keep giving it my drafts, it has learned my voice. So when it gives me something back, it's like I'm talking. There's times I'll copy it back over and change a couple sentences here and there, but the more I do it, the more I keep doing it. This is a chat that's been going on since December. I just keep using the same chat every day. Here's today's email. Here's my draft. Make it fit the framework. So and it gets better and better over time. So if I gave anybody a tip, it would be don't give up. Just keep trying. Um,
Well, and see, that's such a different perspective, I think, or approach than sometimes we're told, right? A lot of times people do it backwards. It's like they have ChatGPT create the draft, and then they take the draft outside of chat, and then they try to add their own story, their own
right.
voice, their own vocabulary, and things like that. So that's certainly a different approach, I think, that than we often see modeled, which is like, duh, like, of course, that makes sense that why wouldn't I write the original draft? Because like you said, now it's actually being able to learn from my writing style, my tone,
Right.
and things like that. And, one of the other summit guests was talking about how we can use AI to elevate what we do, right? And that's just a perfect example is it's like you've got this draft and now you're using AI to elevate the
Right.
draft for your email. At the same time, it's training it. The
Mhm.
other difference I think we see that I feel like is a new idea here is just you keep it in the same chat, right? And I think it's often with every new piece of content that people write,
You learn.
yeah, but it might be intuitive for many to be like, I need a new chat. It's a new piece of content, right?
No, my chats are organized by types. So I'll start with my daily email and then I'll ask it, okay, now can you make me a Facebook and an Instagram post based on this? Yeah, so I keep it all together because that's my daily content. So that's my chat for daily content. If I'm doing content for a client, that's its own chat. So client John has his own chat. Whenever I'm working on John's stuff, it's in that chat. And that way everything stays together and it remembers all the things you've told it before.
Now, do you ever notice that having your work inside those chats causes AI to get confused? Because we hear a lot about the hallucinations. We hear a lot about how sometimes AI can kind of go off track. So, is that something that you've noticed? Do you do something as part of those chats where you're just like, let me help you just clear your brain for a minute before we go in? Or have you not seen that to be a problem?
I haven't I've seen screenshots where it's kind of started spouting gobbledygook, and I've never experienced that. I've had moments where it seems to have forgot that my frame, because usually it's here's the framework that I want for this. So I'll just have to go back and do you remember my framework from earlier? And it'll be like, oh yes, here's your framework. I'm like, okay, remember that again.
Mhm.
And so I just have to kind of, just like a person, I have to remind people to do certain things. And
Yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, that's definitely not something like I will do that to a certain extent. But then I find that, for example, I was running content for a client who does parenting. She writes about parenting and she's working on a summit. And I had it all in the chat parenting, what are the pain points? What could the summit topics be? Getting close to the registration copy. And then all of a sudden, ChatGPT started talking about the health and wellness summit and about self-care and about the importance of like journaling and where it was not super far off. I was like, well, like health and wellness wasn't really part of this. I could see how maybe someone might think it should be part of the parenting summit, but it's
right,
certainly to the point of where I got out of the chat and I had to look like, am I in the right chat? Did I go into a
right.
different chat? But you haven't noticed things like that happening within yours? Huh.
I haven't. I mean, it'll forget frameworks, or in that instance, if it happened, I would just say, okay, we're not talking about health and wellness, remember? Or
Yep.
sometimes I get kind of snarky or funny. I'm like, are you listening on somebody else's conversation? Come back into mine, please. I talk to it like it's a person.
Okay, you know what? And I like that because I think that for people that have similar experiences to what I just shared, or for our viewers who maybe are just really starting to get into ChatGPT and really wanting to dive in and leverage it, I think that that's a great point that you're making is just to put it back on track. You wouldn't
Right,
like say, well, we can't talk anymore if you like you went on a tangent, right? We would just be like, hello,
right,
come back to the conversation and I think that's a really good insight and that's a really good approach because I think that's where maybe a lot of newer users might get frustrated or might think that AI doesn't work.
right. It works. It's just what you put in is, garbage in, garbage out. So what you put in is what it's going to give you back.
Mhm.
And it's important to remember it's always learning, and it's learning from all of us as a whole. So maybe it did the health and wellness because of everything it's learned that's being thrown into all of these summits. So it assumed you wanted it too. So just remind it, no, we don't want that in mind. Oh,
Yeah, that's interesting. Or it's recognizing that every parent needs a little bit of self-care at some point, right?
that's it.
Yeah, yeah. So, you've definitely been, like you shared, you've been interested in computers and programming kind of your whole life. You've grown up with it. I love the story you shared about your grandfather. I think our grandfathers must have been friends because mine was in the Air Force. He worked for Motorola and was doing all these secret things. And I remember he would come home and I'd be like, "What did you work on?" And he'd be like, "I have to kill you if I told you because it's top secret, right?" So,
Right,
yeah, your awareness has come from so long, right? Many of our viewers in the summit have only become aware of AI maybe in the last year, year and a half, maybe 3 years if they're early adopters, right? But for you, you've been in it for quite some time. What advice would you give to women who are aspiring to play a bigger role in AI, whether that's using it more, maybe that's doing something like you're doing where they're sharing and speaking out about the innovative ways that they're using AI. Maybe they just want to be a part of these conversations and a part of these communities. What can you tell them and what do you think women can bring to the table when it comes to the evolution of AI?
For somebody just new to it, but would be interested in learning, my advice is just to dig in. I mean, it's never too late to start learning. And I kind of chuckle when somebody says, "Well, I just found out about AI," because it's been around for so long. We just didn't. I mean, there's so many. I mean, our phones have been around, and those are based on AI stuff. But Siri is an AI basically. So is Alexa and Google, and so it's kind of AI's been around a lot longer than people think. But if someone's interested in getting into it, then I advise get into it. If someone wants to, be a part of these conversations, then find where the conversations are being had and join them. Most women, I find, are very open to like letting somebody else into the circle to have these conversations. And I think women and our ability to see many steps into the future and to think differently than men and stuff is what's going to bring AI into the future.
I love that, and I definitely agree, and so I know you've so graciously gifted our Women Who AI Summit participants a prompt creation checklist. Can you share a little bit about what they'll find inside of that checklist?
I created that checklist at the ask of one of my clients because I was working with her and she's like, I need to know how to create these. So this is I kind of stepped back and I documented my process for coming up with prompts. So it kind of takes you through that. Okay, you have to determine several different things and then it has a template. So you answer some questions and then plug it into the template and there's your master prompt. I love to create, I call them mega prompts. It looks like these big old long things, but they're powerful. So it's just a checklist that takes you through that process and helps you create a better prompt.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I know everybody is going to enjoy that. I know there's always a lot of question around what is the right prompt and things like that. It's something I guess get asked every day. So we're going to find great value in that prompt checklist. I might take a little glimpse of it before the summit even drops so that I can get a sneak peek. But thank you, Lori, so much for joining us and being a part of another one of our summits.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. And thank you, all of you who've joined us. Make sure you grab Lori's prompt creation checklist, and we'll see you inside the next session.